I think what government doesn't get to, and this is a bipartisan issue. I mean, prosperity is something everybody should want. But if you think about, even if you think about the last time you got a driver's license, I mean, that's how the government runs businesses. You know, people that work in the driver's license, if you work hard, the other people are mad because you make them look bad. There's no competition. If you need to get 1,000 driver's licenses out in a week, if you get 800 out, well, you don't lose any business. Nothing happens. So there's no incentive to go forward and to really drive and create self-sustaining, profitable, money-making, job-producing jobs. And if you took that same driver's license and put it into the private sector where you had a couple of companies competing with each other, well, then those people would be working hard to try and make sure that they succeeded. They'd be working hard to try and make sure they could keep their jobs and that their company succeeded. And this is something government can't do or is unwilling to understand. People that go into government get their power from government. In other words, as the government becomes more empowered, if you're in government, you become more empowered. Now, there are people who go into government for very, very good reasons. They want to serve. They want to make things better. There are also people that go into government because government can be a source of power. And I think that's an addictive kind of thing. You start to get really into this role of you're the government employee or you're the elected official, and you want to increase your power and you want to stay in office because you worked hard to get there. You don't want to get out and have to go look for a real job. You want to keep the job you have. So it's a different approach to how things work. In private industry, we create self-sustaining jobs that generate tax revenue. In government, the employees aren't tax revenue producers, they're tax consumers. They consume taxes. So what you have to have the private industry jobs to create the government jobs. You can't create private industry jobs with government jobs. You can only create government jobs from private industry revenues that fund those jobs. So it's a different way of looking at things, and I think that people in government generally, and this isn't everybody, because I say there are people there that really know what's going on, but if we want prosperity, if we want the company to get back on a successful track, there are things that we have to do as government, and there are things we'd like to do. Well, we have to do the things we have to do. The things we'd like to do, we could do more of if we're prosperous, and we can do less of if we're not prosperous. So everything you do to cut back on prosperity cuts back on the goals of either Democrats, Republicans, independents, an environmentalist, everybody. Everybody gets cut back when you don't have prosperity. Well, the problem is government prints money. Government doesn't give the money value. What gives the money value is the entrepreneurial spirit and the energy of the people in that country. And the more you print it, you've only got so much energy and value. The more you print, the less the dollars become worth. So government can't print its way to success. I mean, it isn't the government that gives our money its value. It's the people in this country that give our money its value. And when you disassociate those two, you get lost, you have incredible debt, and eventually you have incredible high interest rates and high inflation, which I think it's going to be very difficult for us to avoid if we don't do something dramatic and quickly. If you've got, let's say we have a 20% tax rate. I'm making that up. It's much higher. I pay much higher. But so the math's easy. Let's say 20% was an average of what we taxed our national income. And let's say our national income was $100. If you taxed it, you have $20. Okay, that $100 of income created the 20 that goes to fund the government jobs. Those government jobs come out of that 20. Well, the 100 created the 20. The 20 can't create the 100. It's just nonsensical. It just doesn't work that way. You can't create massive employment and self-sustaining jobs through the government. And if you could, the Soviet Union would have been incredibly successful. Poland would be one of the leaders of the world. It just isn't a system that logically or sensibly can work. We are at risk of extinguishing the American dream. There is a huge threat from government that I think we need to react to. And luckily we have a democracy, and I think people on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, need to understand that what's best about this country needs to be protected. This isn't a right or a left issue. This is a prosperity issue. It's a freedom issue. And we need to get people to understand government is not, I think Ronald Reagan said, a government is not the answer, it's the problem, or government is not the solution, it's the problem. That's absolutely accurate. I do think there are people who think they need to protect everybody, sort of the nanny state mentality. But I think it was Congressman McCotter this morning who said this, I wrote it down, so I want to get it right. This quest, he called it a quest for dependence from those who could support themselves. And what you do when you help people who really don't need help, when you create this entitlement mentality, you really are telling people they don't have to work for themselves. You're going to protect them. Now, when you do that, that makes them dependent on you, and it gives you power. So this is why they say government is the antithesis of freedom. And we need freedom in this country if we're going to have genuine economic success, prosperity, and happiness. People, even if you have, I'm sure you know people whose fathers were rich, and everybody says, well, this is the lucky person. His dad was very wealthy. Well, most of those people are unhappy. They never have to do anything in their lives. You want to see a happy person. See somebody who's put himself or herself through school, who's gone into business, who's been successful, who earns and takes pride in what they have and wants to pass those values on to their families.